Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky, a new lineup for the Lakers and a new win against Oklahoma City Monday night, a big one for the Lakers. We'll talk about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. So we can go hang out with over 22,000 subscribers who are all feeling at least a little better about the Lakers, at least for one day, following the 112-105 win over the Oklahoma City Thunder Monday night at the Crypt, a badly needed win for the Lakers, win that featured a new starting lineup, which we will certainly spend a lot of time on in this episode. I want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. This one was, Andy, I thought one of the better games the Lakers have played all year long, including what is now a decent pile of wins against good teams. This is as good as the Lakers have looked pretty much all year.
Yeah, I thought from start to finish, the Lakers played a really, really good game and looked like a good team in the process of playing a really good game, which is important to point out during this, rough couple months for the Lakers, where they have not always looked like a good team. Regardless of the results, there have been wins.
Even when they're winning, even when they manage to stay in games or whatever. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah, this was a game where I thought that they looked like a good team, which, by the way, does not mean that they were flawless in this game, because there were not. There were issues that we've seen before with this team. Oklahoma City had 13 offensive rebounds, which they turned into 21 second chance points. The Lakers turned the ball over 17 times. The Thunder turned that into 27 points. And those are recurring issues for the Lakers all season. But in terms of the defense that they made up for otherwise, this was a game where they held OKC to under 42% from the field, under 31% from behind the arc, and under 12 free throws. Like, that is about as good a job as you can do defending without fouling against an elite team, which doesn't necessarily mean, again, you're going to do everything perfect defensively. But as far as like a base foundation of defense against a really, really explosive opponent and making Shai Gilgeous-Alexander work while keeping him under control, I thought the Lakers did a fantastic job tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, it's not just like, did they force Oklahoma City into a bad three-point shooting night? I mean, they were 15 of 49. That's a lot of freaking three-pointers, by the way. Is that all the Lakers doing? No. Oklahoma City missed open three-pointers that they often make. They made a few contested ones that they might normally miss or something like that or whatever. But the biggest thing to me is the contrast between better, at least, three-point defense and than the free throw rate. Because as much as the three-point thing, this is something we can talk about over the course of the week, like the wisdom of their approach to the three-point line versus the overall effectiveness of their defense, because there is kind of like a psychological impact of teams hitting 2 or 3 threes in a row, especially if they're open. But that's supposed to be balanced. You can do some of those things if you don't turn the ball over, but also if you keep them off the line. If you say, okay, you're going to hit 3 or 4 or 5, maybe extra threes or have those opportunities, but you're not going to get 6 or 7 or 8 free throws that you otherwise would, then then you can have defense with some integrity. The problem with the Lakers is that free throw rate thing has really been an issue in different games and so the consistency in the defense hasn't been there. And I thought, when they defend without fouling, And then they forced a lot of turnovers. Guys active in the defensive passing lanes. You talked about what they did against Shai. I thought the Lakers had a really smart defensive game plan, particularly given the new starting lineup, which isn't really tilted toward defense. They went zone, pretty, frequently throughout the game, through zones at Oklahoma City. They, kind of blitzed and trapped SGA at different points. I thought they had a good game plan, and they seemed like they executed it pretty well at the same time.
Yeah, and the new starting lineup, for those unaware, it was D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reaves, Taurean Prince, LeBron James, Anthony Davis. The starting lineup that we saw at the beginning of the year, there was this was amazing. There had been a report from Dave McMenamin, Jovan Buha, like everybody covering the pregame scrum, that Darvin had decided to go with the lineup from last year of D'Lo, Reaves, Vanderbilt, LeBron, AD, which a lot of both fans and even media had been calling for, wondering why Darvin has been seemingly, not even seemingly, I've watched
obviously the games, reluctant to do.
Yeah, there's no seemingly, actually very, very reluctant, not just to start, forget the idea of starting them, like playing them together. I think they've played less than like 15 possessions this season together.
Yes.
So there had been like this, Lakers basketball Twitter, hallelujah, when this news came out. And then it turned out Dave McMenamin followed up later with Darvin, and Darvin had misunderstood, I guess, the way this had been asked. Or I don't know. We weren't there.
The point being, he didn't understand. He didn't hear it right. Didn't interpret it. Whatever it was.
He meant he was going back to, I guess, the lineup that he had thought he would go with had LeBron been available the last game or whatever. But the point being, Darvin went with this new lineup and said before the game and after the game that he expects this to be the lineup moving forward. He talked about that these are the 5 guys he thinks have been the most consistent this season. Now, I'm sure we'll talk about this more because we're going to get into this new both lineup and the rotation. We've heard Darvin say before that this is going to be the starting lineup for the foreseeable future, and it hasn't always stayed that way, though. It hasn't always been Darvin's entirely within his control.
The change in the lineup, to me, indicates a couple of things. First of all, as Darvin said, the explanation for why you go this direction is, it's pretty obvious. It's because they want to get as much skill and ball handling around LeBron and AD as possible, to try to make the offense run better, to try to maximize what LeBron and AD can do, to give more opportunities to those guys. An extra, you have 3 guys on the floor who can handle the ball, LeBron, AD, and Reaves. It makes it so teams can't attack Reaves, with double teams and, high floor pressure and all that stuff quite as easily. Everything can work better. So, I mean, that is the explanation there. The other thing it tells me is that Cam Reddish is probably going to miss some games. Like, he was unavailable for Monday's game, and the Lakers said he's, could miss a few. A few could be a few. Like,
well, there's a plan apparently in place for these nagging injuries that he's had. He's had groin, he's had knee, he's had all sorts of stuff. And the last few games, Cam has been questionable leading up to it, played, then had to leave the game. And the idea that there is a plan, to me, implies the idea of a process that could take a while. But they're looking to make it so when Cam Reddish finally is available to play games, he can actually finish them.
Right, exactly. I mean, and that makes sense. It's like it's more disruptive, really, to have a guy who you expect to play and then can only play 7 minutes, and you have to shuffle things around from there, than it is to have just the guy out of the lineup. And so, for the foreseeable future, the Lakers, this is their lineup. Knock on wood, they are as healthy as they are going to be. 2 guys out, one we really haven't seen all year, and then Reddish, whose playing time had started to come down anyway. Let's break down a little bit more of what you expect to see from this. A lot of fans, of course, wanting to see Vanderbilt in that starting lineup instead of Taurean Prince. Prince remains there, much to the chagrin of many Lakers fans. I might defend Darvin a little bit on this one. We'll come back and break it down next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp, and we are in a new year coming off the holiday season. That can be a very, very stressful time for a lot of people, whether because of having to spend at times a lot of time around family you don't always get along with. There can be tensions that come with that. These holiday seasons can be very expensive, so there's an economic toll to it. Just the act of gift giving can be stressful, and therapy can be a very bright spot amid all the anxiety, the uncertainty, the idea of just there's a new year. I want to be the best version of myself. How do I go about doing that? I can personally speak to how much therapy helped me during a really difficult period in my life with me and my family, and just talking with a professional made a huge difference. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, accessible anywhere, 100% online, no waiting rooms, no traffic, and it's affordable. So just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist, and if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can help you get there. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Locked On Lakers also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL regular season is over, Andy. We had a really fun weekend of playoff football. That Rams-Detroit game was awesome. Really one of the only good ones in a weekend full of blowouts. Well, you can continue to get in on the action of the NFL playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet. You got your live same game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find the most popular parlays. There are lots of other ways to do it. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, so Andy, I as a flag bearing member of D'Lo Island, have basically thought that on a team like this one, he is just kind of too good, even with his flaws, even with the stuff that will frustrate even people like me, who think he's a pretty good player, needed to be playing more minutes and probably need to be back in the starting lineup. He started over the weekend, but that could have been attributed to the LeBron thing. But Monday he started because that was like on purpose. Like everybody was available. I think this lineup makes sense. I am okay with Taurean Prince continuing to get starters minutes. I feel like at least a healthy proportion of the Taurean vitriol that's out there in Lakers Twitter is mostly directed at Darvin, because they see Taurean as kind of an avatar for everything they hate about Darvin Ham.
I agree with Laker fans who say Taurean should not be playing 31, 32 minutes a night. He should be playing around 25. I think that is in a perfect world, the sweet spot for Taurean Prince. That being said, though, I also think Taurean has, for the most part this season, played fine. He is neither the solution to all the Lakers' problems nor the source of all of their problems. But again, because he has a relationship, a long-standing one, with Darvin Ham, he is seen as, I guess, Darvin's teacher's pet, and they don't like it.
It's funny to me because, like, we'll get back more to the lineup too. It's like I saw a few comments just looking at, like, Darvin thinks that he's just way better than everybody else does. I actually don't think that's true. I think Darvin knows exactly who Taurean Prince is and what kind of player he is. Where I think the disagreement seems to be is he thinks that skill set and the stuff he does fits really well. And I think he sees him kind of as a bridge player between all the different types of lineups that they have. And by the way, the one consistent, didn't show it on Monday, the one consistent 3-point threat that they can put out on the floor at all times, who is, at least a credible defender when he's defending the right kind of player, when he's not assigned to the other team's best player all the time, which is what was happening at the beginning of the year. He does fine.
Because it should be noted, Jared Vanderbilt wasn't available, and Cam Reddish had not yet really established any type of defensive utility, like really figuring out the things that for a while he was doing very well. And I think also too, if you want to get into some of the griping that I think a lot of Laker fans have when it comes to Prince and Ham specifically, they feel like Max Christie could do a better job in these minutes than Taurean Prince could, or is a more suitable point of attack defender than Taurean Prince. And look, this was a night where Christie only played, I believe, 11 minutes. It's very clear that Darvin Ham does not really trust Christie. Like, that's become pretty obvious.
And you start to get into situations where it's hard for everybody to play the minutes. So you want, like, Prince should, maybe people are going to flip out over this kind of, Prince should be playing at least 25 minutes a night. Like, the idea that he's a 17 or 18 minute player on this team, I think is ridiculous. So if you're going to have him and you want, like, the Lakers played a lot of big lineups tonight. They were pretty big. They were pretty physical, which, by the way, is what they ought to be doing against Oklahoma City. If you're going to play your starters, generally starters minutes, LeBron and AD were both on the floor, for a lot of, and LeBron played 39 minutes in this game. AD played over 38. Like, if those guys are going to be on the floor as much as they are, well, there is a natural limitation to the amount that Wood can play, the amount that Hachimura can play, the amount that Vanderbilt can play. Like, that's, those other guys are kind of cycling through those positions. And, the Prince makes sense to me in this context. And I just don't think Darvin misunderstands who Prince is. I just think he fills a role on this team that, like I said, maybe, like you said, maybe they want that role to be filled by Christie instead because of the potential, because of the good things that he's done. But I don't think Christie has made it obvious he needs to be playing 25 minutes a night. I think Vanderbilt is probably a 20-minute a night player. I think you start to get into diminishing returns when Vanderbilt plays more than that. He played outstanding.
I'll just say this, the way Vanderbilt, I definitely want to get back to the Russell and Reaves conversation we were having before, but the way Vando has been playing the last, 5, 6, 7 games, where I think he is increasingly looking more like the guy that was, frankly, a revelation when he came over last midseason in that big trade. I would risk giving Vanderbilt, few more minutes each game and start seeing proof of the diminishing returns, as opposed to just assuming that they're going to be there.
Even last year with the Lakers, I think he averaged 24. So you could get him,
he can play more minutes than this.
But I can live with, these are not exact figures. But like,
the point being, though, I think there is a certain amount of assumption of diminishing returns with Vanderbilt. You've heard me talk about this before with Rui. Like, I think if you want to get to something that I do think is fair when it comes to Laker fans and certain criticism that they may have of Darvin, when it comes to just the way playing time is allotted, and maybe this swings back to Taurean, I think there may be an assumption that there won't be diminishing returns with somebody like Prince that may not feel as earned with extra minutes, as opposed to assuming the diminished returns of Rui, of Vando, maybe of Christie to some degree.
But it's not just about that. It's also, they don't do the same things. Even Hachimura doesn't do the same stuff as Taurean. If you want somebody who is more of a large body 3-4 with him closer to the
I don't mean it though.
I'm not arguing, but that's also not, I'm not arguing with you specifically. I'm saying that the point I'm making is that yes, I think Jared Vanderbilt is somewhere in that 20-minute a night to get the maximum amount from him. But it's also last year versus this year. It's a different roster with a different balance to it. You also have Christian Wood and all that. And there are more people vying for some of those minutes, and fewer when you get to 3, 2, and 1. And so I am less frustrated by the Taurean Prince part of all of these things, because I have my own criticisms of Darvin, but I don't think Darvin has this wild blind spot for Taurean Prince and thinks he's just a better and more beautiful player than he is. I think he thinks the role that Prince plays. Now, you could maybe reorganize the rotation, reorganize the lineups, have certain guys play in other positions and other stuff like that. That may be a different argument. But the way this team is constructed, it is constructed for a guy like Taurean Prince because that's who they got to play those kinds of minutes. And
I don't agree with that. Neither one of us expected Taurean Prince to be playing 30 minutes a night when he arrived. That nowhere close to that. We didn't even think he'd start when he arrived. I just don't agree with that. Yeah. It's not true.
That's fair. But I also think a lot of things have been different about the way this team performs than I expected in the preseason, and in the sort of season-long evolution of the team. Again, you knock it down to 25. I don't care. But I think a lot of people want it to be knocked down, on 20 or 18. So
that's fine. I'm the only reasonable one here. So perfect. Everyone listen to me.
Let's talk about that starting backcourt and what the Lakers might be able to do to make it work going forward next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Jace Medical, and we all use sports to escape from the realities of our everyday lives. And unfortunately, real life never goes away for good. And according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. And we've seen over the last few years what happens when the supply chain gets bogged down for whatever reason, whatever product. It's really stressful. Thankfully, Jace Medical can help alleviate that stress. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. These are medicines that could be really handy to have if your doctor wanted to prescribe them, but access was not available for whatever reason. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use the offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order.
It's mentioned at the top of the last segment, I think D'Lo needs to start. I think the Lakers just need to find the ways to get their best players on the floor. People sitting here yelling at me from the last segment. Well, what are you talking about? Why isn't Rui playing? Why isn't Max playing? Why isn't okay? Fair enough. But at least in the backcourt, he's too just with what they got. They need Russell's skill set on the floor. I think Russell's presence, offensively at least, helps Reaves. It's just a matter of whether or not they can figure out a way to hold up defensively on a consistent enough basis. Saturday in Utah, it kind of didn't. LeBron didn't play, which makes a difference. Monday against the Thunder, it did. So what are you thinking when you see it?
First of all, I wanted to point out something I saw really smart on Twitter from Raj Chipalu, Silver Screen and Roll, among other places. Tweeted out, quote, "The Lakers looked like the big, physical, oppressive, and athletic team that made them successful early in the year. Rui and Vando starting to get comfortable within. That is no coincidence." This part really stood out to me. Getting Austin back with D'Lo, Bron, AD allowed him to refill that connector role. That's a way of thinking about it that, I'll be honest, that never crossed my mind before, because we've talked a lot this year about how Reaves has been asked to do more. There was that great profile that Miran Fader wrote about him for The Ringer, where LeBron told him, we're not looking for the little things from you anymore. We're looking for the big things, like the tangible stuff, the counting stats. And they do need more of that from Austin. But at the same time, one of the things that made Austin so great with them last year was even with the numbers that he was putting up, he does a really good job as a connector. And putting D'Lo out there allows you to maybe find that sweet spot a little bit easier, where Reaves can do some of the statsier things while still at times being able to lay back a little bit and then do some of that connecting. I'd never thought about it that way before, but I think that was a really smart observation. Like, yes, there are going to be things that you need to paper over, particularly defensively, with D'Lo and Reaves. I made the comparison before. This is what eventually broke up Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum in Portland. And respectfully to D'Lo and Reaves, they're not as good as Dame and CJ.
No.
And their defensive limitations eventually led to be breaking up. Now, granted, D'Lo and Reaves are bigger than those guys. So there are certain things that maybe you can scheme around with them that are just not quite literally physically possible with Dame and CJ. But
some of it is, I think, too, it's like, and a lot of this goes back to Russell. I mean, it's, and this is a little bit with Reaves.
By the way, D'Lo had some nice defensive moments.
And this is what I'm getting to. Like, because, I mean, I think Russell with Reaves, what Raj was saying is kind of what I was getting at before. It's like, when you want Austin to be able to play make without necessarily being the focal point of a team's defense, where they again, this, whether it's, high floor pressure or traps or things like that, that stress his handle a little bit more than you really want. And the decision, like, you want him when things are moving around and he's got the ball and he's got a little bit of space, and like, his vision is awesome and he moves the ball and he makes great passes and he gets his own offense. It's when D'Lo handles that ball pressure better because he's a more natural point guard. And Reaves works hard. He just gets victimized in one-on-one isolation matchups by, he's generally not going to be the quicker guy in that, and he's still not strong, like gigantic and strong in other ways. But he's gamed to try. D'Lo, he's sort of, it's like, you don't quite know exactly what you're getting here. When he's engaged, he does things like he did on Monday, which is jumping passing lanes, anticipating, using his brain basically to anticipate where the trap needs to come, and jumping out and doing that kind of stuff, and minimizing the inefficiencies in what he's doing. And I thought he did a great job at that on Monday, to where he's not a lockdown defender, but as part of your team scheme, and maybe that means a little more zone to protect both of those guys or whatever it might be. This at least was a bit of a blueprint in what that could look like.
Yeah, I mean, this though gets back to why I had been excited when I briefly thought that Vando was re-entering the starting lineup. And again, it's not even so much about not wanting Prince to play. I expected Prince to get solid minutes coming off the bench, but part of my thought process was, with D'Lo and Reaves now both in the lineup, assuming they're both hitting shots, a lot of that outside shooting that you would get from Prince is now covered by two guys, which can lessen at least some of the need from Prince. But then also, more specifically, with those two there, and still the certain amount of covering that you are doing for LeBron, if we're all being honest about this, you might need to put your best, most versatile, and most disruptive perimeter defender in that starting lineup, which is very obviously Jared Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and I think I don't disagree with you. I mean, if I am not anti Vanderbilt starting, I lobbied for the last year lineup, 3 weeks ago. It's not, sure. Like everyone else, I've been waiting for them to try it. I still think even if they did that, Vanderbilt is a 20 to 25 minute guy, to the reason being, I feel like you're able to use him in the most effective spots all the time. And limit some of the stuff that teams can start to take advantage of. I did think he was going to close. Like, the Lakers with the lead, felt like, okay, this might be a good night for Vanderbilt to get 3 or 4 extra minutes at the end of the game at Prince's expense, or shoot, sit D'Lo or something like that. I think the logic, though, is that if you're going to create playmaking, it's not just who can shoot the ball, it's where are the defenders. And teams are getting very good. Now, Vanderbilt compensates for this way better than Reddish, but teams are getting pretty good at balancing their defense to take advantage of Vanderbilt's semi-zero-ness on that side of the floor.
Though they're getting better at finding ways to use Vanderbilt
they
as
are.
part of the offense.
The Lakers are doing a good job. I mean, Vanderbilt's played really well and played great on Monday. I feel like, and so like, I think like the closing lineup, it's not so much the starting, if they can get off to a decent start and hit some shots and do that stuff. So Prince arranges the floor better to take advantage of the idea of creating playmaking and stuff around your 2 stars. If you're going to do that, then it makes sense to me. Okay, I do wonder how they're going to finish games. Monday felt like a game that maybe Vanderbilt could finish. He didn't. It worked out in the end. But I mean, like, it's like how much can you use Rui? Like, where can you find? I mean, some of this is, can you get LeBron to play 32 minutes a game instead of 39? Because those 7 minutes are going to be split between Rui and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a little bit more Christian Wood or something like that. So that's where some of those extra minutes will come from.
Yeah, I just want to make sure to point out, like, Vando in this game, 5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. He was fantastic,
everywhere.
particularly in the second half, just creating disruption through steals that, led to fast break points for the Lakers, drawing offensive fouls, to end OKC possessions. He was really, really good tonight. I just want to make sure that he got his proper due because he's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think AD, or it might have been Darvin, might have been AD talking about Vanderbilt kind of getting his sea legs back. Like, it is something like, we talked with Christian Wood. What's going on at the beginning of the season? You know what? He might not be in great shape. And, why is he playing better now? He probably is in better shape.
Yeah, it's funny. He still moves like a 6'10" version of Kyle Anderson, but he looks more fluid and comfortable now, even while not being
a little
fast.
more explosive. And when he gets off the floor, and he's very, very smooth. And so guys like that, Kyle Anderson, let's just look slow, but like certain guys who move really fluidly sometimes look like they're moving slower than they are. But I mean, he was in mud at the beginning of the season. Well, maybe Vanderbilt, people sort of it's been, a month since he came back. Well, yes and no. He's also been hurt for part of that time.
Yeah,
and
missed training camp.
We missed all of it. All of it. And then, the first 25 games, it's like they're not in regular shape like you and I try to go out and, didn't work out for a few weeks, but I've been at the gym for another month, so I'm good. Like, that's not jumping back into play NBA basketball. And so you can see the difference in the way that Vanderbilt's moving, the explosiveness, the quickness off the ball, that kind of stuff. And if he is able to fulfill that role, because again, he and Reddish are both negatives offensively, but Vanderbilt is a better negative than Reddish.
Absolutely.
If he looks like last year's guy, he's a massive lift for the regular season. If they play him off the floor in the playoffs, who cares? Let's cross that bridge when they get there, because they're not there yet.
Nope.
Let's see what happens Wednesday against Dallas. By the way, that's an early start. It's a weird game, 5:30. We'll see how that local time. We'll see how that impacts things. But for one night, at least, I was pleased with what I saw.
Yeah, it's a really fun night.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out, see the show, hang out with over 22,000 fans. Leave us questions, comments, stuff that we will use on the show. Thanks for stopping by, celebrating a quality Lakers win. We'll see everybody tomorrow.